Imagine being fined $75,000 just for digging a pond on your own property. It sounds like the plot of an absurd movie, but that's exactly what happened to Ethan Carter, a 42-year-old mechanic from Michigan. He wanted to turn his backyard into an oasis for his family, with a pond for fishing, swimming, and enjoying the summer. But out of nowhere, the homeowners association and the city came down on him with threats that could take everything he'd built and even the house he lives in. Ethan wasn't one for fights, but he wasn't one to give up either. This story is about how an ordinary guy faced crazy rules, nosy neighbors, and a system that seemed hell-bent on crushing his dream. Want to know how he turned it around? Stick with me, because this is one of those cases that'll keep you hooked until the very last second. Ethan Carter had calloused hands that told stories. By day, at Carter's auto shop, he unbolted engines, like solving puzzles, with a precision that kept customers coming back. But at night, in his single-story home in Willow Creek, he traded grease for dreams. Sitting on the porch with a warm, forgotten beer in hand, he pictured a lively backyard, not that dull carpet of grass, but a place where his kids, 10-year-old Noah and 6-year-old Mia, could make memories like the ones he cherished with his grandfather. Those afternoons fishing at the little pond, with the sun glinting off the water and the smell of wet earth, were what Ethan wanted to pass down. It wasn't about money. It was about time, the kind that lasts forever. Lisa, his wife, was the perfect counterbalance. While Ethan planned with rulers and notebooks, she dreamed in colors. Picture us having a barbecue there, with lanterns strung up and neighbors laughing, she'd say, already seeing the scene. Noah, with his obsession for animal facts, started researching koi fish on his tablet, spouting things like, "Did you know they can live up to 70 years? I'm naming mine Godzilla." Mia, on the other hand, just wanted to know if she could swim in the pond and if the fish would tickle. The house, once just an address, began to pulse with plans. Ethan felt he was building more than a hole with water. It was a piece of himself shaped for his family. But Ethan wasn't one to skip steps. He knew poorly planned dreams turn into nightmares. He spent weeks researching everything: ideal depth, soil types, environmental impact. He hired Dr. Paul Hayes, an environmental engineer who looked like he preferred trees to people. Paul measured the land, tested drainage, and gave the green light. The soil can handle it, but install a biological filter to keep the water clean. Ethan jotted down every word. Then he tackled the red tape. At City Hall, a board clerk stamped his papers and said, "Private land, no rivers nearby. You're good." At the HOA office, the manager, a guy named Bob with crooked glasses, shrugged. "As long as it doesn't turn into a swamp, it's your call." Ethan went home confident he was on the right track. The project took shape in Ethan's notebook: an oval pond, 15 meters wide, with a shallow 50-centimeter section for the kids to play and a deeper 2-meter part for the fish. He sketched the outline with smooth stones, imagined reeds and water lilies along the edges, and even looked up colorful koi to bring the bottom to life. He spent nights in the living room, with Lisa grading school papers beside him, tweaking details. "You're obsessed," she teased, but the sparkle in her eyes showed she loved it as much as he did. Noah popped up with wild ideas, like a slide into the pond, while Mia drew fish with crayons, naming them things like Mr. Bubble and Lady Rainbow. It was the kind of unity that made Ethan believe nothing could go wrong. But the world has a way of throwing dirt on plans. Willow Creek seemed quiet, with its cookie-cutter houses and neighbors who waved out of politeness. But at number 47 lived Karen Whitaker. At 52, Karen was the type to turn silence into a problem. Self-appointed president of the neighborhood committee, she patrolled the streets with a notebook, hunting for invisible infractions: a chipped fence, a bark too loud. No one knew exactly why Karen was like that. Some said boredom, others control issues. The point is, when Ethan started digging his backyard, with a noisy backhoe humming on the lot, Karen caught a whiff of something she couldn't ignore. The first morning of construction, Ethan was in the yard with Paul marking the ground with stakes, when he saw Karen standing on the sidewalk. Arms crossed, red-framed glasses perched on her nose, she looked like a hawk eyeing prey. "Morning, Ethan," she said, with that tone that mixes sugar and venom. "What exactly are you doing here?" Ethan, sweaty and with dirt on his boots, explained the pond plan, keeping it light. "It's for the kids, you know, a spot to play fish." Karen raised an eyebrow. "A pond here? Do you have any idea of the impact on the neighborhood? Mosquitoes, noise, property devaluation?" She let the sentence hang, like a threat wrapped in concern. Ethan laughed, thinking, it was just her being dramatic. "Relax, Karen, it's all by the book. I've checked everything." But her look said the conversation was far from over. With the city and HOA's green light, Ethan didn't waste time. He hired Green Valley Landscaping, a local outfit known for turning bland yards into oases. The owner, Miguel, was a soft-spoken guy who got Ethan's dream. "We'll make this pond something to tell your grandkids about," he promised, unrolling plans in the yard. The next day, the lot became organized chaos. A backhoe roared, spitting black dirt, while Ethan, in worn boots, worked alongside the crew. He hauled buckets of debris, laughed with the workers, and sometimes paused to picture Noah and Mia splashing in the water. Lisa showed up with iced lemonade, and even Noah tried to help, dragging sticks with comic seriousness. "I'm building memories," Ethan thought, wiping sweat from his brow. In 2 months, the backyard was transformed. The pond gleamed like a mirror, 15 meters of crystal water reflecting Willow Creek's sky. The edges, lined with soft grass, seemed to hug the stone outline Ethan had handpicked. Water lilies floated at one end, and a wooden bench, painted by Lisa, sat under a willow, perfect for her to devour her novels. Ethan installed a biological filter, as Paul suggested, and brought in the first koi, orange, white, one even with black spots that Noah swore looked like a panda. The boy named the biggest ones Nemo and Dory, while Mia insisted every fish was her baby. At night, the family sat on the grass, listening to the water's murmur and the croaking frogs that had already claimed the place. It was more than a pond. It was a slice of paradise. The grand opening was Lisa's idea. "Let's invite the neighbors, have a barbecue, show them this is for everyone to enjoy." Ethan agreed, a bit shy but excited. On Saturday, the backyard turned into a party. Folding tables covered with checkered tablecloths, the smell of grilling sausages, and a speaker blasting the classic rock Ethan loved. Mr. Jenkins, a 70-year-old widower from the corner, showed up with a homemade apple pie and a toothless grin. "This is better than an amusement park, Carter," he said, pointing at the pond. Neighborhood kids ran around tossing frisbees, while Noah explained to anyone who'd listen that koi are basically aquatic dinosaurs. Mia, in a yellow dress, tried to teach the fish to swim in circles. Even Bob, the HOA manager, showed up sipping a beer and saying he'd never seen the neighborhood so lively. Neighbors snapped photos, posted on social media with hashtags like Chan Carter's Pond, and praised Ethan as if he'd built a world wonder. A mom named Sarah, who lived 2 streets over, confessed, "My kids won't stop begging to come here. You've created a tourist attraction." Ethan laughed, a bit embarrassed, but his chest swelled with pride. Lisa, holding a glass of wine, whispered to him, "See, this is our legacy." Night fell with lanterns hung in the trees, just as Lisa always wanted, and the pond reflected the lights, looking magical. For a moment, everything was perfect, but not everyone was charmed. Across the street, Karen Wheeler watched from her porch, clutching the same notebook she used to police the neighborhood. At 52, Karen had a knack for finding flaws where no one else saw them. Her blonde hair always tied in a flawless bun, she seemed to measure every laugh, every splash in the pond. During the party, she didn't come near, but stayed there, arms crossed, her face a mix of disdain and determination. Ethan caught a glimpse of her but looked away. Let her be, he thought, wanting to believe Karen just needed time to accept. The pond. The pond party felt like a distant dream. A week after the barbecue, while Ethan helped Noah with homework and Lisa graded papers in the living room, the mailman dropped off an envelope with the Willow Creek Council's seal. Ethan opened it, expecting some trivial paperwork, but the words on the page froze his blood. "Dear Mr. Carter, your artificial pond on Lot 32 violates the condominium's aesthetic and harmony standards. We request the immediate suspension of all aquatic activities until the official hearing." At the bottom, Karen Wheeler's signature, president of the council, written with a pen that seemed to scream authority. Ethan read it twice, confused. Aesthetic standards. What the hell is that? He muttered, showing the letter to Lisa. Lisa dropped her papers, eyes wide. They can't do this, Ethan. You have the permits. Noah, curious, peeked over the table. Are they taking Nemo and Dory away? He asked, his voice trembling. Ethan ruffled his son's hair, trying to seem calm. No one's taking anything, buddy. But deep down, anger simmered, not just at the letter, but at the smug satisfaction he imagined on Karen's face as she wrote it. He grabbed his phone and called her, wanting answers. Karen answered on the second ring, with that syrupy tone that hid thorns. Ethan, darling, what a surprise. Everything okay? Karen, what's this about aesthetic standards? I checked the rules. I have reports. City permission, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. She sighed, as if explaining something obvious to a child. Ethan, the pond's causing discomfort for some residents. Mosquitoes, noise, you know how it is. We need to keep Willow Creek elegant, don't we? We'll discuss it at the hearing, don't worry. He tried to argue, but she cut him off with a, "See you then, darling," and hung up. Ethan stared at the phone, tempted to smash it against the wall. Lisa squeezed his hand. She's playing you. Let's go to that hearing prepared. Ethan spent the next few days gathering everything. Dr. Paul Hayes's reports, Green Valley landscaping, receipts, emails from the city confirming the pond was legal. He reviewed the papers at night, bags growing under his eyes, coffee going cold in his mug. Lisa tried to cheer him up, saying it was just a formality, but even she seemed tense. John and Noah stopped talking about the fish, and Mia kept asking if the pond was going away. The house, once buzzing with plans, now had a heavy silence, as if Karen had invaded their home without stepping inside. The hearing took place in a stuffy room at the HOA office, with beige walls and an air conditioner that hummed too loudly. Ethan arrived with a thick folder of documents, wearing his best polo shirt, trying to ignore the knot in his stomach. Lisa stayed home with the kids, but sent a text. "You've got this, love. Show them who's boss." The council table had 5 members, but Karen dominated as if she owned the neighborhood. Sitting in the center in a flawless blue blazer with red nails tapping the table, she looked like a judge ready to deliver a verdict. Beside her, Bob, the manager, fidgeted with his crooked glasses, looking uncomfortable. The others, a gray-haired lady, a guy in a suit checking his phone, and a woman taking notes, seemed like puppets under Karen's gaze. "Good evening, Mr. Carter," Karen began, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "The council has received complaints about your aquatic project. It compromises Willow Creek's aesthetic and raises concerns about safety and property values." Ethan took a deep breath, opened his folder and started talking. He showed Paul's reports explaining the pond had a biological filter and didn't attract mosquitoes. He presented the permits, proving the city and HOA had approved. "Yeah, this pond is for my kids, for the neighbors. At the opening, everyone loved it. There's no basis for this complaint," he said, his voice firm but calm. Karen listened, tilting her head like a predator sizing up prey. When he finished, she opened her notebook, the same one she used to patrol the neighborhood, and started her performance. "Mr. Carter, I understand your attachment, but we have rules. A pond doesn't fit Willow Creek's visual harmony. Have you considered the risk of children drowning, or the devaluation of homes? A realtor told me properties with makeshift structures lose up to 15% of their value." She threw numbers and arguments like grenades, leaving no room for rebuttal. Ethan tried to respond, but she cut him off with lines like, "We must consider the greater good," or "The council needs to remain impartial." The other members seemed mesmerized. The gray-haired lady mumbled something about expensive pond maintenance. The suit guy nodded, eyes still on his phone. Bob coughed but said nothing. Ethan felt the ground slipping away. "You can't ignore the documents. This is legal. It's on my land," he insisted. But Karen had already turned the page. After a quick vote, with Bob abstaining, the only hint of resistance, she dropped the hammer. "The council gives you 30 days to remove the pond. Otherwise, we'll take legal action." The word legal came out of her mouth like a knife. Ethan left the room clutching his folder, his heart pounding. The night air felt heavy, and Willow Creek's lights, once warm, now seemed to mock him. Ethan was still reeling from the hearing, clinging to a silent promise to protect the pond. He thought he could negotiate, maybe sway the council with more reports or an appeal to the neighbors. But Karen Wheeler didn't play for a draw. 5 days after the meeting, while Ethan was fixing a carburetor at the shop, Lisa called, her voice shaky. "Ethan, a letter came from the city. You need to see this." He dropped everything, heart in his throat, and raced home. On the kitchen counter, an official envelope screamed bad news. Ethan opened it and read, "The pond on Lot 32 violates Municipal Ordinance 47B on unlicensed water structures. Initial fine $75,000. Daily penalty $1,000 until complete removal." Ethan's legs went weak. $75,000, he muttered, passing the letter to Lisa. She read it in silence, her eyes wide, while Noah peeked from the doorway, clutching a comic book. "Dad, are we going to lose the house?" he asked, with that brutal child's logic. Ethan forced a smile. "No one's taking anything, Noah, I promise." But the promise felt heavy. He went back to the fines text, searching for the reason. There it was. The pond threatened the local ecosystem, with a risk of mosquito proliferation and water pollution. It was so absurd, Ethan almost laughed. Almost. Lisa squeezed his shoulder. "This has Karen's fingerprints all over." "It has to." Furious, Ethan called Dr. Paul Hayes, the environmental engineer who'd approved the project. Paul listened to the story and let out a dry laugh. "Mosquitoes? Pollution? Ethan, that's nonsense from someone who's never seen a pond in their life. Your system uses private well water, doesn't touch rivers." "The koi? Harmless. Whoever wrote this doesn't even understand aquariums." Paul promised a detailed report to debunk the claims, but warned, "Someone's pressuring the city. These fines don't just pop up out of nowhere." Ethan thanked him, but Paul's warning echoed in his head. He knew who someone was. The shadow of the fine loomed over the Carter house like a stubborn cloud. Ethan knew they needed a plan, and fast. That night, he called Lisa and the kids for a family meeting in the living room. The carpet was littered with Mia's toys, and Noah clutched a notebook where he jotted fish facts, like it was a secret mission. Ethan sat on the couch, Lisa beside him, and looked at his kids with a smile that hid the weight in his chest. "Guys, we need to talk about the pond," he began. Mia, with big eyes and a stuffed bunny clutched to her chest, asked, "Is Karen gonna steal Nemo and Dory?" The question cut Ethan like a knife, but he leaned forward, ruffling her hair. "No one's stealing anything, Princess. The pond's ours, and we're gonna fight for it, together." Noah crossed his arms, skeptical. "But she's like the boss of the neighborhood, Dad. Isn't she the law?" Lisa laughed, breaking the tension. "No one's bigger than the law, Noah. Not even Karen with that bun that looks like a bird's nest." Mia giggled, and Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. They were a team, and that was worth more than any fine. After the kids went to bed, Mia with a new drawing of Nemo, Noah with his notebook under his pillow, Ethan and Lisa huddled at the small kitchen table, surrounded by papers and a coffee maker begging for mercy. Ethan opened his laptop, determined to figure out how a woman like Karen could turn a pond into a municipal crime. He dove into property law websites, HOA guides, and forums filled with stories of tyrannical neighbors. It was in the early hours, with burning eyes and a mug of cold coffee, that he found the Homeowners Rights Network, an online group where people shared tips for fighting homeowners associations, or as they called them, tyrannical HOAs. In the forum, Ethan posted his story, venting his frustration with the fine, the hearing, and Karen's emails. Within hours, he got dozens of replies. "Classic power abuse. I've seen this movie, watch out for her. You need a lawyer." One message stood out. It was from Rachel Brooks, a lawyer from Ohio, who described herself as an expert in taking down HOA Karens. Rachel had a direct tone, sprinkled with hammer and fire emojis, and asked for case details. Ethan sent everything: the council's letter, the city fine, Paul Hayes' reports, and scheduled a call with her the next day. Rachel answered with an energy that seemed to leap through the phone. "Ethan, let me tell you something. Your Karen's bluffing, but she plays dirty," she said with a slight accent blending confidence and sarcasm. "This threatened ecosystem story is hogwash. The pond's on your land, with permits, in order. But she knows how to lean on the right people, like that city clerk who swallowed her story." Ethan mentioned Karen's emails to the mayor and the photo of them together. Rachel laughed. "Classic. She thinks she's the queen of the neighborhood, but queens fall. We'll need everything you've got, documents, reports, witnesses. And, Ethan, record anything she says. These Karens always slip up." Inspired, Ethan turned into a makeshift detective. He organized a folder with every scrap of the project, the Green Valley contract, receipts for the stones, even the email from manager Bob saying, "You're good." He called Dr. Hayes, who sent a new report with charts and technical jargon dismantling the mosquitoes or pollution claims. Ethan also dug through his phone, finding recordings he'd made on a whim. In one, during a tense talk by the fence, Karen dropped gems like, "Ponds are hillbilly stuff, Ethan. Willow Creek isn't a farm." He smiled for the first time in days. "Got you," he muttered. But Ethan knew facing Karen was like taking on a hurricane with an umbrella. She wasn't just a nosy neighbor. She was a force with connections, venomous charm, and a terrifying knack for bending rules. Willow Creek, once a neighborhood of polite nods and identical lawns, became a battlefield. Karen Wheeler, with her flawless bun and a smile hiding knives, launched a campaign to demonize the Carter's Pond. Colorful flyers started appearing, in mailboxes with bold letters screaming, "Dangerous swamp on Lot 32, protect your home." The text, signed by the Willow Creek Harmony Committee, read Karen, ranted about killer mosquitoes, property devaluation, and risks to children. Ethan found one of these flyers taped to his fence with a poorly taken photo of the pond that made it look like a bog. "Seriously?" he muttered, crumpling the paper, but the tightness in his chest told him Karen was playing for keeps. She didn't stop at flyers. Karen went door to door, clipboard in hand like a weapon, persuading neighbors with her venomous charm. The Petersons, a couple from the back street who loved flaunting their shiny SUV, were the first to fall. "The pond will turn Willow Creek into a third-rate neighborhood," Mrs. Peterson said at a council meeting, echoing Karen's words. Others, like Mr. Walsh, a rule-obsessed accountant, nodded, muttering about HOA standards. Karen knew her targets, people who valued status or feared change. She showed up at meetings with shoddy PowerPoint slides, red arrows pointing to dengue risks and ecological collapse. It was so over the top, Ethan almost laughed, if not for the $75,000 fine hanging over his head. But not everyone bought Karen's story. Mr. Jenkins, the 70-year-old widower with his legendary apple pie, became the pond's biggest defender. "Swamp? That's a gift for the kids. My granddaughter wants to come every weekend," he said, banging his cane on the floor during a meeting. Sarah, the mum who'd called the pond a tourist attraction, rallied other families like the Tereses, whose 2 kids loved skipping stones in the water. They formed a pro-pond group dubbed Carter Pond Friends, at a meeting fueled by lemonade and chocolate cake, brought by Mrs. Torres. "The pond brought the neighborhood together, Ethan," Sarah said, handing him a stack of support letters, signed by neighbors. "Karen doesn't run us." Ethan felt a spark of hope, but Karen wasn't one to yield ground. One morning, while dropping Mia off at school, he passed by the yard and froze, stunned. The pond, which sparkled like a mirror, was covered in green algae, floating like rancid soup. "What the hell?" he muttered, sniffing the air. It wasn't natural filth, it smelled like plastic. Lisa ran outside, Noah trailing behind, and the 3 stared at the scene. "Someone did this on purpose," Lisa said, her voice trembling with anger. Noah, with his junior detective logic, pointed out, "Dad, Karen hates the pond, bet it was her." Ethan didn't want to believe it, but suspicion grew. He rushed to the shop, grabbed a cheap security camera used to monitor inventory, and set it up in the yard, hidden in a bush. The next night, the camera struck gold. At 2 a.m., a slender figure appeared on the footage, wearing a dark coat and bright pink gloves. It was Karen, no doubt about it. sprinkling handfuls of fake algae, the kind sold at aquarium stores, with the delicacy of someone planting flowers. She even looked around like a B-movie villain before vanishing into the dark. Ethan watched. The recording the next morning with Lisa by his side, both caught between shock and laughter. "Pink gloves, really, Karen," Lisa said, shaking her head. Ethan saved the video on 3 USB drives, feeling like he had a silver bullet. He brought the video to the council at an emergency meeting, with Rachel Brooks coaching him over the phone. "Show the evidence, but stay calm. She'll try to wiggle." Out? In the stuffy HOA office, Ethan hooked his laptop to a projector and played the footage. The council members, Bob, the grey-haired lady, the suit guy, and the note-taking woman, sat in silence, as Karen on screen tossed algae with her ridiculous gloves. Mr. Jenkins, in the audience, let out a loud laugh. "Looks like a Mexican. Soap opera." Ethan glanced at Karen, expecting an outburst, but she didn't flinch. With the calm of someone denying the sun, she said, "That's digital manipulation. I was just checking the pond out of environmental concern. Someone must have edited this video." The council swallowed the excuse, or pretended to. Bob coughed, uncomfortable, but the grey-haired lady muttered something about lack of concrete proof. Ethan left the meeting with clenched fists, the video burning in his pocket like an unfulfilled promise. At home, Lisa hugged him. "She's slippery, but we're gaining ground. The neighbors are on our side." Noah showed up with a handmade poster. "Save Carter Pond." Mia, beside him, held a drawing of Nemo with a crown. Ethan smiled, but he knew the fight was far from over. Karen had the council and the city in her pocket. To beat her, he'd need more allies and a plan to catch her off guard. The battle for the pond left the backyard and landed in court, where the rules were tougher and the air conditioning seemed to freeze even hope. Rachel Brooks, the lawyer, who lived to take down HOA Karens, filed a lawsuit against the city and the Willow Creek Council. She demanded the cancellation of the absurd $75,000 fine, the suspension of the $1,000 daily penalties, and a court order to protect the pond as private property. "They've got no legal ground, Ethan," Rachel said, her eyes glinting with a mix of confidence and hunger for a fight. "But brace yourself, Karen's going to play every card she's got." In the courtroom, a grey-walled room smelling of old paper, Karen appeared as a witness for the city, impeccable in a navy blazer and with a speech so rehearsed it could have come from a politician's handbook. "Willow Creek is a neighborhood of high standards," she began, her voice sweet enough to fool the unwary. "Mr. Carter's pond is a threat to community harmony, children's safety, and property values." She cited vague studies on mosquitoes and looked at the room like she was the neighborhood's guardian. Ethan, sitting beside Rachel, felt his fists clench with every word. Rachel didn't let it slide. With the precision of a sniper, she presented a stack of emails Ethan had obtained through a public records request. In one, Karen wrote to a city official, "The pond is a personal affront. I can't stand that hillbilly thinking he runs the place." The room went silent, and the judge, Margaret Cole, a middle-aged woman with thin-framed glasses and a no-nonsense expression, raised an eyebrow. Rachel pressed harder. "Mrs. Wheeler, is this about ecology or your ego?" Karen stammered, for the first time without a ready answer, and mumbled something about the greater good. The audience, neighbors like Mr. Jenkins and Sarah filling the benches, exchanged satisfied glances. Ethan took the witness stand with his heart racing but his voice steady. He told the story of the pond, the afternoons fishing with his grandfather, the dream of giving memories to Noah and Mia, the care put into every detail. He showed photos of the kids swimming, their smiles lighting up the room, and passed along Dr. Paul Hayes' report, proving the pond was cleaner than the HOA's pool. "This pond isn't just water," he said, looking at the judge. "It's my kid's future." Lisa in the audience wiped away a tear, while Noah, who'd insisted on coming, clutched his fish facts notebook like a talisman. The city brought in an ecology expert, a lanky man named Dr. Fowler, who looked uncomfortable in his tight suit. He tried to explain the pond's ecological risk, but stumbled over disease vectors and admitted, under Rachel's pressure, that he'd never visited the site. "So you based your report on assumptions?" she asked with a sharp smile. Fowler blushed and Judge Cole jotted something down, clearly annoyed. But the city wouldn't budge, doubling down on the fines with vague claims about public interest. Ethan later learned through Rachel that Mayor Harold Vance was still getting daily emails from Karen demanding that the Carter case be made an example. The hearings dragged on for months, each one draining the Carters' savings. Ethan and Lisa cut out dinners, cancelled cable, and even sold their second car to cover Rachel's fees and court costs. Karen showed up at every session, her sunglasses screaming untouchable, and a smile daring Ethan to give up. At night, at home, Mia would ask, "Will the judge save the pond, Daddy?" Ethan answered with a hug, unable to promise what he couldn't guarantee. But deep down he felt the weight. The pond sparkled in the backyard, with Nemo and Dory swimming oblivious to the war, but the battle was sucking the soul out of the family. Tired of playing defense, Ethan decided to change the game. Inspired by a comment from Noah, "Dad, why don't you tell our story to the world?" He created an X profile called A Karen's Lake War. He started posting photos of the pond at sunset, videos of Mia tossing pebbles, and Noah explaining why koi are the kings of the backyard. Then he uploaded screenshots of Karen's emails, with lines like, "Ponds are hillbilly stuff," highlighted in yellow. He wrote the whole story. How he built the pond for his kids, how Karen turned a dream into a personal crusade, how the $75,000 fine threatened his family. "This isn't just about water," he posted. "It's about the right to be happy at home." The first post got a few likes from neighbors, but exploded when Sophie Lane, an influencer with millions of followers, shared it with the caption, "This Karen needs a hobby. Support the pond. Town stop Karen Wheeler." Within days, the hashtag went viral. Memes flooded the internet. Karen tossing algae with pink gloves, edits of her as Cruella de Vil holding a shovel, even a fake video of her dubbed with "I am the law." People from other states sent messages. "Stay strong, Ethan. My HOA's a nightmare too." A group of biology students from the local university joined in, testing the pond's water for free and posting, "Cleaner than my kitchen tap water. Save Carter's Lake." The online pressure shook Karen's castle. She tried to fight back with a video on X filmed in her living room with floral curtains in the background. "I'm being bullied," she said, with tears that seemed rehearsed and a martyr's tone. "I just want to protect our neighborhood." But the internet wasn't kind. Comments like, "Cry harder, Karen, and give the pond back," flooded. Her post, and even Mr. Jenkins got in on it, tweeting, "Bullying is tossing algae in someone's yard. Team Pond." Her video got more dislikes than views, and Karen started fading from social media, her bun looking less perfect the few times she was spotted. While the pond war raged, an unexpected ally stepped in. Clear Waters, an environmental NGO that championed sustainable projects. They learned about the story through X, where Tharung Stop Karen Wheeler was still spawning memes and debates. A Clear Waters biologist, Dr. Clara Nguyen, visited Willow Creek with a team of scientists and was enchanted by the Carter's pond. "This isn't just a pretty backyard," she said, pointing to the frogs croaking on the banks and dragonflies dancing over the water. "It's a mini ecosystem. We're seeing new birds in the neighborhood. Even a heron showed up last week." Their report confirmed the pond was more beneficial than harmful, attracting biodiversity and serving as a model for sustainability. Clear Waters didn't stop at tests. They offered to cover part of Ethan's legal costs, easing the burden crushing the Carters' finances. Better yet, they organized a community event in Willow Creek called Sustainable Pond Day. Ethan's backyard became a stage for ecology talks, with kids drawing frogs on poster boards and adults learning how backyard ponds can help the environment. Mr. Jenkins brought his grandson, Timmy, who spent the afternoon chasing tadpoles with a toy net. "This pond's magic, Grandpa," the boy shouted, mud up to his knees. Sarah brought cupcakes decorated with fish-shaped frosting, and the Torreses set up a homemade lemonade stand. Even Bob, the HOA manager, showed up, a bit awkward, but with a shy smile that said, "I'm with you." Karen tried to douse the fire with gasoline. Days before the event, she sent anonymous emails calling Clear Waters outsiders and the event illegal. She stood at the neighborhood entrance with a clipboard, demanding permits, no one needed. But the neighborhood was fed up. Mr. Jenkins ignored her, saying, "Go police somewhere else, Karen." Sarah posted on X, "Karen trying to sabotage the pond party? Pathetic. Save Carter's Lake." No one paid her threats any mind, and the event packed out, with over 100 people laughing, learning, and snapping selfies with the pond in the background. Clearwaters launched an online petition, Save Carter Pond, which exploded with 90,000 signatures in 2 weeks, including messages of support from cities as far as Seattle and Miami. Ethan looked at the crowd at the event and felt something, knew he wasn't alone anymore. Lisa, in a floral dress, served lemonade alongside Sarah, laughing like she hadn't in months. Noah explained to his friends why koi are better than sharks, while Mia led a line of kids tossing bread to the fish, now called her water babies. Neighbors who'd stayed neutral before, like the Martins from up the street, brought beach chairs and praised, "You changed the neighborhood, Ethan." Even strangers who'd heard the story on X sent emails, "Don't give up, Carter. My HOA's a nightmare too." For the first time, Ethan felt the pond wasn't just his. It belonged to everyone who believed in dreaming against the odds. Karen, seeing the support swell like a wave, tried to double down. Anonymous letters started appearing in mailboxes, with phrases like, "The pond will bankrupt Willow Creek and beware of the Carters." But the shot backfired. The neighborhood knew her handwriting, or rather, her obsession. A neighbor, a young programmer named Leo, used software to compare the letters to Karen's old flyers and posted on X. Spoiler, it's the same person. Stop Karen Wheeler. The hashtag gained even more traction, with memes of Karen scribbling by candlelight like a gothic villain. She stopped showing up on the streets, but in court she still appeared with sunglasses, as if she could hide what everyone already saw. After 18 months of hearings that felt like 18 years, Judge Cole brought down the gavel. On a spring morning, with the courtroom packed with neighbors and local reporters drawn by the case's fame, she delivered the verdict with the clarity of someone fed up with games. "The city and the Willow Creek Council abused their authority," she declared, peering over her glasses. "The fines are nullified. Mr. Carter's pond is legal, provided it is properly maintained, and any interference will be considered a violation of property." She paused, staring at Karen, who sat pale in the corner of the room. "And let it be clear, manipulating public processes for personal motives will not be tolerated." The room erupted in applause. Ethan hugged Rachel, who laughed. "Told you, Queen's Fall." Lisa ran to him, tears mingling with a smile worth more than any pond. Noah and Mia, watching from the doorway with Mr. Jenkins, shouted, "We won!" The neighborhood buzzed, but the victory went beyond the courtroom. Pressured by Clearwater's petition and the bad press the case brought, the Willow Creek Council met days later and removed Karen from the presidency. She tried to run again with a teary speech about traditional values, but lost by 87 votes to 3. Those 3, according to Sarah, were her mirror, and her bun. Karen never raised her head in Willow Creek again. The Carters celebrated the only way they knew how, with a party by the pond, now free of fines and shadows. The backyard became a sea of laughter, with Noah and Mia swimming until their fingers wrinkled while Ethan grilled burgers, and Lisa hung lanterns in the trees as she'd always dreamed. Neighbors filled the space, bringing pies, salads, and stories. Mr. Jenkins danced with his granddaughter. Timmy tossed pebbles with the Torres kids, and even Bob showed up with a shy gift, a fishing rod for Noah. Clearwaters sent a surprise. A carved wooden sign reading "Carter Pond, where dreams defeat Karens." Ethan nailed it to Lisa's bench, laughing so hard he nearly dropped the nail. "Perfect," Lisa said, pulling him into a kiss as the sun painted the pond golden. "Today, Ethan's pond is more than water. It's where the neighborhood gathers, for barbecues, where Noah and Mia learn to swim, and where Ethan and Lisa plan to grow old." The city, embarrassed, eased rules for projects like his. Ethan became a volunteer with Clearwaters, sharing his story to inspire others. He says he learned one thing: Karens may yell loud, but dreams yell louder. The pond, now called Nemo's Haven, is proof that with support and courage, even an HOA Karen can be defeated. And you, Have you ever faced a Karen in your life? Share in the comments, and if you enjoyed this, drop a wave emoji to support. Ethan, until next time, because victory stories like this deserve to echo.